age doesn't matter, race doesn't matter. What's up everyone? Welcome back to my channel. It's me, Eps, here in the UK, reacting to the videos that you guys recommend. But before we get started, you know the drill. Please hit the like button and subscribe and follow me to all my social media accounts so that we can be friends. Okay. Yeah, so in today's video, I'm going to react to why I hated living here in England. Okay. So, let's see his reason. Okay, let's do it. Ooh. The intro says it all, isn't it? Just drinking the tea. And on his title, why I hate living in England.
Good old Twinings. Earl Grey of London. Brew for 1 minute. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about reasons why I didn't like living in England. So there must be a few reasons why I didn't like living in England, otherwise I wouldn't have been so desperate to leave the country in the first place so I could come and live in Japan. So we're going to be talking about the reasons why I didn't like living in England. I think I already said that. Okay, number one, the women too tall. Yeah, the women very tall. Me
Really?
as a 5'7", 5'8" tall guy, it's kind of difficult to find a suitable mate or a girlfriend, as people like to call them. When
No way, I don't think the majority of the women here are tall. I have a lot of petite colleague at work as well. Yeah, I mean, not the majority of the women here are tall. Yeah, I can see some are tall, but there's a lot of petite as well, and I was really surprised with that. It's a very petty reason, not liking, you know, or why he hate living here in England. Okay, let's see his reason.
most of the girls, or a lot of the girls, are taller than I am or are the same height as me, I just think it's kind of strange when the guy is shorter than the girl. So I don't have any problems with the girl being fatter than the guy, but I draw the line at the guy being shorter than the girl. That's just kind of weird. I don't know what it is about English girls, but for some reason they're so tall. Maybe it's because they...
But I think when it comes to love, age doesn't matter, race doesn't matter. When it comes to love, I think, it doesn't matter what height you are as long as you like or love each other, right? It's not the height. It's about two person being together who's loving, liking each other or attracted to each other. I don't know. I think he's more into physical thing. Okay.
drink so much milk and they eat lots of butter. But it's very difficult for someone who's only 5'8", like I am, to find a girl who's actually shorter than he is. And the second reason would be I don't really remember feeling attracted to girls back home in England. I've never felt really excited. I've never felt my heart skip a beat because I saw a really cute English girl and I really wanted to bamboozle her. That never happened. Even when I was working in a petrol station and I was seeing customers, female customers every single day, young women, middle-aged women, normal women, I just didn't feel attracted to them in the same way that I feel attracted to Japanese women.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
It's just very difficult to find a suitable girlfriend when you live in a country where you don't really feel attracted to the women of the country and you're shorter than most of them. And sometimes people say, why didn't you just go to Chinatown in London where there's Asian women if you really wanted an Asian girlfriend? And yeah, that's a valid point, but you know where there's even more Asian women? In Asia. So I decided to come to Asia to find myself an Asian woman, and I figured that in Asia there would be a higher chance of finding a suitable Asian woman because, you know, there's more Asian women in Asia. I don't think we need to beat that point to death anymore. Let's move on to the next point.
Well, that's his opinion. Okay, I think it's more on, how can I say, like physical attraction. But then it shouldn't be a valid reason why you hate living in England. If you end up hating it, it's just some reason like maybe some people, or the culture or the people are, are so bad, or like, I don't know, you don't feel at home because the people they are not friendly or something like that. I would, well, anyway, we respect everyone's opinion, right? So that's his opinion. Okay. Everybody's different anyway. Let's get into the next one.
The next point would be shaking hands. I don't like shaking hands with men. I don't like touching other men's hands because I think it's gross. And I know this isn't something that only happens in England. It's a Western European thing and American thing, I guess. I just really dislike shaking hands. I think it's gross having to touch another guy's filthy, disgusting hands. You don't know what he's been touching. Actually, I do because I'm a guy and I know what I touch, and I'm pretty sure that other guys touch the same things. You know what I'm talking about. What I'm saying is, I don't want to touch a guy's hands because he's probably touched his dick and he's probably wiped his ass and he's probably picked his nose and done all kinds of
Okay, all right, fine, okay. Well, if you don't like touching people's hand, that's fine. I respect you on that. But I don't think the people here are always shaking hand, unless maybe you're a businessman or I don't know, you're going to somewhere very formal, you go on party like I don't know, wedding or something, I don't know, because at work or since I live here in the UK, I haven't seen a lot of people shaking hand. I'm not sure, but personally living here in the UK, I haven't come across or really experienced that, or seeing people always shaking hands all the time. Maybe unless you go into wedding, or you're into office, or you made a deal or something. I think it's not something that you see every day. I don't know, I'm not sure, but anyway, if that's your preference, then that's fine. I'm sure you can always avoid that. You don't have to always shake hands. Okay.
gross things. I don't want to touch his hand. I don't like shaking hands. I don't want some guy gripping my delicate fingers
Delicate
and crushing
fingers.
them.
Crushing them.
The great
Voy a la playa, había subido la marea.
thing about living in Japan is there's no handshaking culture. When you meet someone for the first time, you don't have to shake their hand, and I love it. I hate it when someone gives you a really firm, hard, strong handshake. It's like they're trying to assert their dominance over you by saying, hey look, my grip is stronger than yours. I can crush your hand if I wanted to, you pathetic little boy.
Oh my god.
Every time someone holds out their hand
my
to me
God.
because they want to shake my hand, I'm thinking to myself, oh, do I have to touch your hand? Do I really have to? Can't I just say, sorry, I don't want to shake your hand? You can't even refuse someone's handshake, otherwise it makes you seem rude. And you just have to suck it up and shake his hand so you appear to be normal.
Okay.
Another thing I hated about living in England is the drinking culture, and I'm not talking about alcohol. I'm talking about tea and coffee. So this usually happens in the workplace where you have a coffee machine, or a little kitchen in the office where people can make their teas and drinks. And in British culture, it's considered to be polite and friendly and well-mannered to ask everyone in the office or in the work area if they want to have a drink, if you're going to make a drink for yourself. So let's
Yeah, that's kind of true. Well, I love that part. I love the drinking part, because I'm a coffee drinker. And yes, the British people love drinking coffee and teas. And at the workplace, maybe it depends, but yeah, usually if they're going to make a drink for themselves, they will offer you one. But it's not something like happens every day or all the time. Like unless they are friends, they just kind of offer only those people who is close to them. It's not like, oh, the whole team, all the whole people, you have to make them a drink. Maybe it depends on the situation. But yeah, I can understand that part. Um, but then I don't think, you have to be forced, or, it's kind of like they will enforce you to do that. Like, okay, you have to make everyone cup of tea. I don't think so. I mean, it's your personal preference if you would like to offer them or not. Otherwise, if you are rushing, you then just go and make your own drink and you don't need to offer them. Well, with me, I always offer them if I make myself a drink, or if I have a food, I usually share my food with them. But okay, that can be a valid point. Sure, there's a lot more than this for you to be hated living in a particular country, right?
Pretend you're working in an office and it's 11:30, nearly lunchtime. You've been working very hard. You just want to have a 5-minute break, just to make yourself a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, and you want to go make yourself a cup of tea. Well, you can't, because if you want to have a little tea break, you have to ask everyone else in the office if they also want to have a drink. I'm going to make myself a tea. Would anyone else like to have a tea or a coffee? And then before you know it, you have a whole office room full of people going, oh, yes, please, I'd like to have a coffee. Yes, please, I'd like to have a tea, actually. And then you have to ask them how they like to have the tea or coffee made. Some of them don't like milk. Some of them only want a little bit of milk. Some people don't want sugar. Some people want 1 teaspoon of sugar. Some people want 2 teaspoons of sugar. And then you have to end up remembering how everyone likes to have the tea or coffee made. I used to work in the same company as my dad did, in an office. I was an office junior, office assistant, and they used to make me make the tea for everyone. This stupid guy called Gordon used to say to me, Daniel, I want you to go around the office and ask everyone if they want to have a drink at 9 a.m. in the morning and 3 p.m. in the afternoon.
Oh, I don't know that that is a job now in the office to make everyone a cup of tea. I don't know, because in my workplace, obviously we have to offer everyone a drink because it's a care home. So we have to encourage them to drink a lot. But in the office area, I don't know that is becoming like a job for someone, to like, okay, go and make everyone a cup of tea. Didn't realize that. Well, maybe it's a different setup in the office.
And I just said no, and then I got into trouble, and long story short, I got fired. Well, I kind of quit because I refused to make the tea. He wanted me to go around the entire office asking every single person if they wanted a drink, and he told me to get a piece of paper and write down how everyone likes their tea or
But why are they asking him to do that? Is that his job? Because otherwise, you could just say like, well, it's not my job to make everyone a cup of tea, or like it's not a part of my job description, right? Unless I don't know what was like in the office, if they really requires someone to make everyone a cup of tea or drink. Anyway.
coffee to be made, so I don't forget. I got into trouble for refusing to make the tea, and then my boss gave me a lecture on how
Really?
important it is, how important making tea is for everyone else. It was just a load of rubbish, and I said, sorry, I don't agree with this, and I don't want to work.
Well, that must be a traumatic experience for him if they're really forcing him to make everyone a drink, because it should not be like that, isn't it? I mean, should not be enforced. Um, it's very petty, and I don't know why they did that to him. But if that really actually happened, then uh, of course, it's a very traumatic experience for someone to be treated like that. Okay.
Here anymore, and he terminated my contract. He terminated my contract because I didn't want to make tea for other people. Not because I was a bad employee, not because I didn't do my job properly.
Yeah, that's very petty. If he fired you just because of that, you should have answered like, well, this is not a part of my, roles or my job. It's not even in my job description. Anyway, sometimes situations like that we can't avoid.
I didn't do it properly anyway. Most of the time I didn't have any work to do, so I was just sitting there studying Japanese secretly. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is, he he didn't let me continue working there because I refused to make the tea. How stupid is that? If other people
It
want
is.
to have a tea or a drink or a coffee,
Yeah.
why don't they stop being so lazy and get off their asses and make it themselves? Why do I have to make drinks for everyone just because I want to have a drink? I ran into a similar problem when I started working at the petrol station a few years later, and my co-workers, every single day, they kept asking me if I wanted to have a drink when they went to make themselves a drink, and they kept asking me, Daniel, would you like to have a drink? And I'd always say, no thank you. And then 8 months later, they were still asking me every single bloody day, would you like to have a drink, Daniel? And I was still saying no thanks. I never once said yes please, and they never gave up trying to ask me if I wanted a drink or not.
Well, maybe because they're just trying to be polite, right?
I can't say yes. I can't say yes, please, because if I get them to make me a drink, then I'm indebted to them. I owe them a drink, and I don't want to make them a drink. I just want to make myself my own drink. I don't want to make anyone else's drinks, teas or coffees. And then one time, my boss, the manager at the petrol station, was there, and I made myself a drink. And then she told me off because I didn't ask anyone else if they wanted a drink. She said, Daniel, did you ask everyone else
Really?
if they wanted to have a drink or not? And I said no, and she said why? And I just said I don't know because I didn't want to be rude. I didn't want to say, because I can't be asked to make all of your bloody drinks. If you want a drink, then go and make it yourself. That's what I really wanted
Yeah.
to say, but I couldn't say that's my boss. And then she also started giving me a lecture on how important it is to ask.
Well, they don't do that at work, in my workplace. We are not being forced to ask people or to make them a cup of tea. It's only for resident because that's our job. But for our colleague, they don't enforce that to us. That sounds strange, right?
People if they would also like to have a drink when I go and make myself a drink. It's just so annoying. The next thing I don't like about England is everywhere just looks really old. All the towns and villages, they look really old. It feels like you're in the 1800s because all of the buildings are made out of brick. They don't knock down.
Well, because mate, the thing here in the UK, well, I think I based on my observation is that they always preserve everything. They preserve the building, they preserve the history. They're trying to preserve everything, even the jam, right? Joke, kidding aside. Well, I think it's because they are preserving the history. The vintage, the old buildings. It's something to do with the history as well, I think.
Buildings and update buildings or make them look modern. And the train service in England isn't very good. In my village, the train only comes once an hour, and you might be thinking, oh, that's because you live in the countryside. Obviously, the train's only going to come once an hour. But even in the nearby town, which is one of the biggest towns in my county, Maidstone, the trains only come once an hour. So
Really?
if you get to the train station and the train has just left, well, you're going to have to wait an entire hour until the next train comes.
Oh.
There were so many times when I had to go to the job centre and I finished my appointment, my meeting, and I got back to the train station and the train had just left, and then I had to sit there for a whole hour. There was a few times when I got my bicycle and I just decided to cycle all the way back home. 8 miles, that wasn't fun. And another irritating thing about the trains in England is at some train stations, small train stations in villages, they don't have ticket machines, so you can't buy a ticket. And then you get onto the train, and what happens is usually the guy working on the train, he comes down and checks for tickets and you can buy a ticket off him. But sometimes that guy doesn't walk down the train and he just sits in his little cabin wherever he sits and he doesn't sell you a ticket. So that sounds great. Great, I don't have to buy a ticket sometimes, and I save so much money from not buying tickets on trains. But the problem is, sometimes you get caught because they have railway security
how can you
guards
get
that just
out?
randomly appear at certain stations. It's not every time they're there, but sometimes they are there, and they look like policemen. There's like 3 or 4 of them guarding the exit to the train station. And if you haven't bought a ticket on the train, then they fine you about £20. And then if you say, I don't have a ticket because the ticket man wasn't there, he didn't sell me a ticket. And then the security guards, they get angry and they say, well, it's your responsibility to go and find him on the train and buy a ticket from him, which is a load of rubbish. Why is it my responsibility to go and hunt him down?
Well, I think it's because here in the UK, most of the time is, do it yourself. I've noticed, Even in like petrol station, right? You have to serve your own, put your own petrol in your car, and then you have to go and pay. You can't just go in the petrol station, put your own petrol, and then walk out. It's your responsibility to go and pay because there's a lot of cameras everywhere. And also, it can test your honesty as a person, right? But although, yeah, I can understand what you're trying to say, yeah. It's because I think in here is mostly is do it yourself thing. Everything is self service.
and buy a ticket. It should be his responsibility to do his job and to check people's tickets and to sell them tickets if they don't have tickets. Maybe if they put proper ticket machines at all of the train stations, there wouldn't be
Yeah.
this problem. Sometimes there's a man at the train station in the ticket office selling tickets, but he's only there in the morning from 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. or something. And then after that, he goes home and the whole ticket office closes down for the rest of the day. I've actually been fined about 2 times, and you can get away with not paying the fine if you tell them a fake address, because they have a little form and they'll make you fill out all your details, your name
Oh
and
my
your
God.
address. And if you just put a fake address or just change a little detail on the postcode, for example, you could just change
Can you actually
the
do
number
that?
6 to a number 4, and then the letter with your fine won't reach your house, and then you don't have to pay your fine. Don't
That's being cheeky though. Like he's teaching us. Like really, you're teaching us to fake our address. That's so bad. They just tell. Why would you say that? Hey.
tell anyone I told you that. It's a secret. And the last thing that I didn't like about England, I think this is probably the biggest thing, I just didn't feel safe in England. I felt like I wasn't an English person because I look Asian, I don't look white. I had a lot of racial abuse thrown at me.
Really?
When I was a kid, other kids would tell me to go back to China or go back to Asia all the time. I just didn't feel welcomed in my own country. I know this sounds silly, but I feel like I fit in more in Japan than I do in my own country, which is kind of sad now that I think about it. Even as an adult, when I was walking around outside in towns in England, I would have groups of kids just come up to me and say ni hao in like a condescending way. English people would ask me where I'm from all the time, and it would be kind of awkward because
I can understand him in that part, because we have some experiences as well. Like my husband, how many times um he got thrown with something like the children or like the teenager, especially when he was cycling at the time. He used to get like what you call this one? Someone throw a stone or ice at him, and I don't know. You can still feel sometimes the discrimination against Asian or other race. I know it's not a nice experience, but I mean with him as well, yeah, he doesn't really look that British. And I can understand him on that part. I mean, although I would say probably it depends where you live, and yeah, well, but then it's not nice either if you have that experience, right? It's well, I can only sympathize.
say that I'm from Maidstone, just like you are. And then they'd go, no, where are you from? And then I'd say, okay, my dad's English, my mum's from Malaysia. Is that what he wanted to know? And I'd feel kind
Oh,
of
I
annoyed because
see. That's why he looks Asian because apparently his mom is a Malaysian. I thought he is just like a full English. So that's why because he's got that mixed race.
it felt like I was being treated like a foreigner when I'm not a foreigner. So in conclusion, the main reasons why I didn't like living in England were mainly because I didn't really feel attracted to the women there. I didn't feel like I belonged there. I don't really feel like I belong anywhere, to be honest, but
Oh,
at least I feel like I fit in more here in Japan than I did in Japan. I mean, than I did in England. And I don't have Japanese kids walking up to me and going, hello, in a condescending way like British kids do.
I know. I understand. British kids are like that. Or well, not the majority of it, but I understand where he's coming from. Okay, so that's the end of it. So that's the end of it, and I suppose is the general experience, you know, especially the traumatic experience that it had him, like especially, you know, with him looking like an Asian, probably, or I don't know, his channel's name is hiding in my room. Like, I would probably, well, I don't want to assume anything, but he's probably the kind of guy who hasn't got much friends, or like, I don't know, maybe doesn't go out a lot. But anyway, I can understand him in some ways, and otherwise, I think it just varies. You know, it depends on people. You know, life is not perfect. Wherever you go, there's always a problem. There's always a misunderstanding. There's always, you know, sadness. Oh, I mean, like, life can. It's not always perfect. It's just how we make it. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Thank you. Bye.